Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Friday, September the 9th, 2016, and I have the great honor and this very distinct pleasure of welcoming back to the show Mr. Brad Harris, whose work you can find over at FullSpectrumSurvival.com. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
The manipulation, the propaganda, the lies, the deceit,
It's unending, and it's only going to get worse. That's what I tried to talk with people about and let them know that wherever you see the world today, it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. The economy is not going to get better. Public health is not going to get better. Rampant corruption throughout the governments aren't going to get better. Things aren't going to change for the better. So you better prepare for the worst now while you have a chance to, and while you think things are good.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that, and I think that things are going to change, and I think that there's going to be an abrupt change. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think that over the next few weeks, as there's a formalized shift in the economic and monetary structure that shifts from the West to the East, it's now being recognized, it's on the table, and once that comes into full bloom, and like I said, that's coming over the next few weeks, that is going to be the first really wake-up call on a more global scale, where it's like, wait a minute.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, the entire dominance of the Western world is changing, and we are going to see a shift to the East, without a doubt, on the economic front, on the military front, and on the global power front. And the U.S. is going to be upset about it, and Western allies are going to be upset about it, because to the people in power, to the elites that stand to lose the most, they're going to experience something that they haven't wanted to for a long time, and that's a change for the worst. You know, they've sat with their boots on the necks of everybody else in the world for so long that all of a sudden they're starting to see that allegiances are shifting. They're starting to see the economies are pulling in different directions. They're starting to see that things for the first time in a long time are outside of their control. And so they're just going to, something's going to happen. Like you said, there is going to be an awareness of this that becomes public knowledge. And we do stress that we might see a global war. We might see military action, because we all know that when economic action fails to take place, war happens.
Exactly. They resort to their last line of defense, and that is to push the button and start sending ICBMs flying. Period.
That's right. Yeah.
That's what they've done throughout history.
Right.
Why would today be any different?
No, it won't. We just have larger missiles now.
Exactly. More dangerous, more. I mean, it's incredible, but I want to commend you on. I know that you've been dealing with this hurricane that came ashore down in Florida, which is where you live, and you were able to deal with everything that goes on with that, and still maintain your daily post, bringing the news, delivering it to your subscribers and to the world. And it was really, really great to see that.
I appreciate it. And I'll tell you what, that's one of the benefits of being in the preparedness and survival community, is that these small hiccups that throw everybody else in the world or in your local area into a drive of chaos, they don't affect you as much. So in a lot of ways, with the exception of our power going out for a long time and us relying on solar power, which only gives us, priority items, with the exception of that, we didn't have any changes. So we were still able to, do some of our work. Like you said, we were still able to live our daily life while we went out and we saw people in very near chaos. They were 20 cars deep at the gas station. They were all buying as much water and as much canned food as they could. They were talking about looters. It really brought this unease throughout the people who the day before thought that everything was fine, thought they were going to go to the movies that weekend or go out to dinner or see what the kids were doing, things like that. They had to wake up for a second, just a split second, and see what the world is really like. for us within the community, yourself included, and all the listeners included, we know what the world is really like. So these small hiccups don't change us as much. They don't affect us as much. And we're able to, if a disaster does take place that really affects our local area, we're able to provide help to others because we're not stuck in that chaos.
Exactly, and when you and I spoke a couple of weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, because we had originally scheduled this for right at the time when Hermine came ashore, when that
That's right.
hurricane actually hit. We were supposed to be doing this show at that time,
That's right.
and it's and what we had spoke about, Brad, and this really truly drives home the point that we were trying to make during that show. It is not about the world coming to an end. It is not about mass die off of human beings. It is about little things. Not well, a hurricane's not a little thing, but things that are part of everyday life.
Yeah,
And
disasters that happen every day.
disasters that happen every single day. There's one happening right now. I mean,
That's right.
it's incredible.
I'll
And
tell you what, talking about the last time that we talked together and the video went out just one day less than a month ago today. And we brought up an important subject, and I'm sure you'll remember that's the India-Pakistan border of Jammu Kashmir, where they've been
yep,
under curfew.
yes,
Today marks their third month of curfew. They relaxed it for a couple of days, saw huge riots and protests, and they put curfew on again. So that means that all shops are closed, all gas stations are closed, government buildings are closed, and the military is patrolling the streets. It's unbelievable that this isn't seen in the Western world. We'll take a look at one small problem and get everyone fixated on it. One
yep,
small little thing, and everybody in the Western world is looking at it because it's on mainstream media. But how about the people who haven't had access to medicine in 30 days, or in 60 days, or in 90 days? How about the people who, when you go out in the street, you get beaten by the military just for going out into the street, or just for trying to get home from a location that you got stuck in?
trying to
So
get your medicine. You're out trying to get your medicine and you get stuck.
that's right. Or what if you know somebody just down the street who has the same kind of medicine, and you try to go get it for grandma and grandpa, and you get beat by the military just for being outside? It's this type of life that happens in the rest of the world that we are and have been somewhat sheltered from here in the United States, but that sheltering, that veil is coming to an end.
Yes,
And we're seeing it more and more, and things are ripping that veil open. And like you said, as soon as this shift happens that takes Western dominance and puts it in the East, and with China and Russia, we're going to see it even further because the U.S. won't be focused on keeping the house so pretty. They'll be focused on staying in power.
right.
And that change right there is what's going to shift unrest in the United States. It's what's going to shift political turbulence, economic turbulence, and it's what's going to possibly turn our cushy first world nation into an uncertain stream of near consistent disasters. And I think everybody should today prepare for that eventuality, because every empire falls, every single one. Every economy crashes, and it's only a matter of time when that happens.
Well, and I think that we have clear cut evidence of the foundation of the empire crumbling. I mean, the
Yes,
foundation is very unstable at this point. If you just look at the priorities that are set forth by the federal government right now, the priority is war. The priority should be infrastructure
that's right.
because of the roads, our water systems, all of these things that are in dire need of attention. We have plenty of money for bombs. We got no money for roads. We got no money for water systems. Where are the priorities?
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
and that's the whole problem. And if you look at, and I'm not a fan of China. I'm not a fan of Russia. I'm not blowing these guys up and saying, "Woo, they're great, they're awesome." I'm just looking at the facts. And the fact of the matter is that China and Russia are working together, and China is spearheading the largest infrastructure project in the history of this planet.
Yeah,
And it's
they're
called,
preparing.
that's correct, they're preparing for their future.
Right.
And they're preparing, the planning stage is over. with this, with the One Belt, One Road. Some people call it the New Silk Road, call it whatever you want. They are interconnecting everything in Asia, and it's well on its way. They've already ran their first shipment back in February of this year. So the infrastructure is already well on its way. This is going to be the economic engine of the entire world for the
Yeah, right,
next 100+ years.
right.
And the West hasn't even been reporting on it, much less recognizing that it is absolutely unfolding right now as we speak. They're working night and day on this project.
And infrastructure brings up such a strategic point in what we try to prepare for and help other people prepare for. And that's that we've seen the studies, recent studies, 2016, that say the United States major infrastructure, we're talking sewage, power, healthcare, major things, is so frail right now and so overtaxed that we are just one small hiccup away from a disaster. And we're starting to see the implementation or the thought-provoking suggestions of infrastructure warfare and of sabotage. Now, you and I both know that for one reason or another, something that is going to come to fruition oftentimes gets talked about in the past. You can always look back on it and say, oh yeah, I saw people talking about that, or I saw suggestions for that. That's what we're seeing right now, is the potential for infrastructure sabotage to take place here in the US, and something to happen that we have very little control over. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that a family, a person, may be stuck without power for 30 days. Or what if that becomes a larger event? And what are you going to do then?
Yeah, or 60 days or 90 days. I mean, and that's very realistic. I read a year or so ago, and I can't even begin to think of where I read it, but the article was discussing the fact that most, if not all, of the transformers that we see on the telephone poles that litter our neighborhoods,
Mm-hmm.
all of those transformers are now made offshore. And it's
Yes,
like,
right,
why in the world would you offshore that?
right.
I mean, something as crucial as
The continuity of power.
exactly. It's
Right.
like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I
Without
mean,
a doubt.
is that realistic? I don't know. I mean, was that somebody blowing smoke up my skirt? I don't know. I would rather not take that chance.
No, you're absolutely right. And that brings up a great point, and that's that what should the average person do to get started? You suddenly your eyes are open and you see these events taking place, sometimes at such a sharp degree uh, within time that you feel like you're behind the curve. What can you do? And I just talked with a couple of great associates last night, and we started discussing things that everybody can do today without letting a fatalistic um, mindset take over you and keep you from taking action, without letting a wait and see approach take place. Today, you can go and you can buy 50 pounds of rice and you can put it in $3 white buckets from Walmart. They're HDPE2, which means they're food grade safe, and you can put that away. And then at least if something happens, you have some degree of sustenance.
Yep.
And one of the other biggest points that I can help everybody with is that you have to right now learn soil reparation and learn what it's like to grow your own food, not just because the food that you get at the grocery store is so inundated with chemicals and so changed through genetic modification and through just a decrease in nutrients that are picked up from the ground, but it's also something that's going to go away during a disaster. The access to that food is going to go away.
Yep.
So if you don't learn today what overwatering looks like, or what too much sun looks like, and what can and can't grow in your particular zone of your country, you're going to be 30 to 60 days behind the curve, and that is a period of life or death.
Couldn't agree more.
Today I would hope that everyone goes out, gets rice, has a way to purify water, The Sawyer mini kits will purify, I believe, 100,000 gallons of water, and you can get them at Walmart for $19 and put some seeds in the ground just to say, put them in a 2-liter bottle just to say you can grow something under the conditions that you have in your area in this current season. And then you're going to learn these things that give you a feeling of control over what is otherwise out of your control. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that if you don't, then you're setting yourself up for failure, plain and simple. Because, like you said, the food that we get in the grocery store is poison. Period.
Mm-hmm.
They call it food; it's actually poison. It's killing us. They know it. We know it. Anybody with half a brain, everybody listening to this knows that the food at in particular the produce department, that's all
Oh yeah,
poison.
right.
And
Yeah, the meat's injected with so many antibiotics that
it's
you can leave it
incredible.
out on the ground and nothing will happen to it.
I mean, the salmon, if you go and you think, well, I'm gonna have salmon because it's healthier and blah blah blah, it's painted.
Right.
It's actually there's a food grade paint that they put on it to make it look pretty.
That's
But
right.
as far as growing your own food, that's imperative. You have to learn how to do that, because once the trucks stop rolling, and I firmly believe this in my heart of hearts, Brad, that we're going to see these events in our lifetime. I really
Oh yeah,
believe that.
me too.
I think that we are, like I said a minute ago, that it is very obvious that the foundation of the United States has
It's
major
crumbling.
problems. It's
Yeah,
crumbling.
it is. And
And
what we're starting to see right now is just a couple of chips away. What we've experienced is unfortunate chips away at the bottom of the foundation. But
yep,
soon enough, enough of those are going to take place that it will come down quicker than anyone could have ever imagined.
just like
And that's the point that you're too far behind when that happens. If you don't have some sort of preparation and takes, in place. And what happens if you're away from home when that happens?
right,
How do you get back home? Have you planned your routes of travel so that you know how to get back home if there's a level of duress, if there's unrest in the area? Do you have a way to purify water on your way back home that's sitting in the trunk of your car? Because in all likelihood, if you're in the city or if you're at work when a disaster strikes, you will still be able to make it to your car. That's just very likely because we all in Western society don't park all that far away from us. Or if we don't use a vehicle, then we usually have a backpack on us already or some form of carrying utility. So having within your car or within your backpack that you carry with you every day a way to purify water, a weapon to defend yourself, and a map to get home, and just these normal implements of outdoor skills and survival and preparedness. If a disaster strikes while you're at work, you're still going to get home to the family, and you're not going to be forced with the decision of whether you should stay there where it's currently safe or whether you should try to get home to get everyone else safe.
for me, getting home is imperative. I mean, that has to happen. I mean,
Right.
and it would actually be the in reverse for me personally. I would be moving towards my wife, and the plan that we have is for that to happen. That is our plan. She
Right.
stays in place. I come to her,
Which
and
is smart
don't move.
because then you don't
Don't
have,
move.
and I'm sure that you already have in place. I'm sure the listeners are going to think of it that you have in place. What if her direct area is in, is unsafe? I'm sure you have something in mind already of where,
Yes.
nearby. So that, without being said, is a great plan because it erases a level of miscommunication or the chance for you two to cross paths as you try to get to each other, and then you're stuck. Where is she? Or
Right.
where is my children? Where are my children? And that's not a position that anyone wants to be in. Look at the tsunamis that we've seen take place, where it is just a chaotic uh, aftershock of what's going on. And the parents don't know where the kids are. The kids can't find the parents. They're forced to trust other adults that may not be trustworthy. Parents are forced to, make a decision to either go into an unsafe ground or wait and see if their children might have just been in the hotel already. You know, these are the types of things that communication and plan making, like you and your wife have done, erase. It takes that equation completely out of the entire scenario and allows you to be ahead of the game.
And once again, like we talked about before, Brad, it brings the stress levels way down, because in these types of situations, your brain is going to be racing in ways that you cannot even begin to imagine, and your heart rate is going to be elevated to a degree that it's your whole system is going to be completely jacked up. So,
That's
but
right.
if you've got a plan, if you've got items in place, then your system is going to it's going to get elevated, but it's not to the degree if there is no plan, if there is no security whatsoever. You're just out there flailing around with your arms are just flailing in the air. I mean,
That's right. Oh, that's a great point. Let me take you back 5 years uh, to the 2011 Fukushima disaster. My family works on a tiered, triggered event planning scale. So depending on what the trigger is, we have different tiers of action. We were thankfully awake that night when we saw everything happen, and we saw the live feed, and we captured a lot of that feed just so that we could go back and further research what was actually going on. And knowing that the reactor was hit, we knew exactly what to do, and we immediately set into planned ways to protect ourselves, ways to protect the future, the continuity of safety if it were to get worse, and how to plan for the future. So you weren't going to be eating Washington apples for a little bit. You weren't going to be eating California oranges for a while because the radiation was going to be moving in that direction. So having this type of planning and trigger system in place just allows you to refer to something that you've already discussed. And no matter what it is, whether it's radiation, earthquake, wildfire, house fire, carjacking, you already have a plan. And that's the most important thing.
that is the most important thing. I mean, and there's plenty of resources out there. I mean, plenty, not just on YouTube, but there's plenty of great authors. I mean, Daisy Luther and James Wesley Rawls. I mean, these folks have written Tess Pennington. I mean, there
Right.
are these are great resources that should be in everyone's library, and you should not only be taking it to heart today, but keep it so that when, not if, but when something goes wrong, you all of a sudden you've got a working manual, literally a working manual that will help you to move forward instead of being stuck in the mud or moving backwards because your brain is in meltdown.
That's right. I would suggest everyone goes out and gets a free copy of the Where There Is No Dentist and Where There Is No Doctor series of books. Have you ever read those?
No, I have not.
They're free for everyone online. They're written by a nonprofit, and they're given to third world countries in place of where they don't have access to healthcare or dental care. And it's kind of a last resort. If you can't get access from someone who has experience with this, refer to this manual. Great manual, discusses major events, discusses major things that can happen with your health, both oral health and bodily health. And it really gives you a sense of knowing what to do there, because our reliance on medical care is huge, and
Huge.
rightfully so, because there's so many things that can go wrong that it takes an absolute, uh, you know, large amount of information and experience to be able to diagnose and treat so many different things. But having this book allows you to do that without having a doctor in your group or without being a doctor or a nurse yourself. So I would suggest everybody goes out there and gets that. I have no affiliation with it, but ever since I started preparing, I've had one printed out and in PDF form.
There you go. And I will have one before the end of the day. I'll at least have the PDF, and it's where there is no dentist and where there is no doctor.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay,
And I'll
and I
tell you
can
what,
go ahead.
printing out your documents is such an imperative part of preparation.
Yep.
I just had a guest on our live show last night, and he had been to Haiti with his family to do some missions on the ground. And those people in Haiti went from a normal life, and sure, it wasn't a westernized life, but they went from a normal life where everyone could get access to food and safe water and an emergency care if they needed it, overnight to a disaster that is still just as bad today. And one of the biggest things that he took away from that, and that his family took away from actually being there on the ground, was that it was normal yesterday and then it's a disaster today. And that disaster has stuck around for so long because people didn't have the preparation to make personal change after an event took place. So they were at the complete mercy of the government. And that's where you don't want to be.
No, that is the wrong place to be. I mean, that will ruin your life in a flat heartbeat. I mean, I can't even imagine. I really
Now,
can't.
one of the things I wanted to discuss today was we'd already brought up Asia and their rise to power, China's rise to power.
Yep.
What are your feelings on the recent nuclear test at North Korea? What are your feelings of conflict, an increase in conflict regarding that?
I'm not exactly sure what is happening with North Korea and why they continue to fire these nuclear. I don't know if they're armed, but the goal is for them to be able to fire a nuclear weapon, an armed nuclear weapon, and they keep firing them in the direction of Japan. And I'm not sure what Japan has done to warrant these so-called tests that they're doing. And it just doesn't, in light of everything else that's going on in Syria and Ukraine and the Middle East in general, I don't understand why the folks of North Korea see fit to do this.
Well,
And
without a doubt, it is a provocation of one sort or another. No one can refute that. So the problem comes, I believe, in what happens when you poke the bear too much. And that bear can be a lot of different people. It can be a country that relies on the United States to back it under international treaties. That bear could be something totally unrelated, but we are seeing an increase in the military stance of countries around the world where they are becoming more agitated. And just look the other day, we had Russian bombers just off the coast. We've seen over and over again, Iran has come closer and closer to U.S. ships. We're seeing this provocation, and it's generally anti-Western.
but and I apologize for interrupting, but look at what we have done for the past 50 years.
Not without warrant, but we're seeing it in a way that it will affect the listeners, in a way that it will affect us, because there will come a time when so many claims have to be called to action, and so many wrongdoings by the United States and Western allies have to be called to responsibility. And like you said, we're not standing behind these other countries and saying this is the right way and I'm with them, because if we were, we would do that with our feet and we would move there.
Exactly.
We acknowledge the threat and acknowledge that the United States has not done what's right in all cases. And at some point in time, great change is going to take place that knocks it off the pedestal.
You cannot continually accuse someone of committing war crimes, of committing hacker crimes, of committing crimes of all kinds, and the
Expect
person
nothing to
that you're
happen.
accusing continually reaching out to you with an open hand saying, I would like to help you with your struggle in Syria.
Right.
And continually, we not only do we not want your help, but you need to get your hackers under control, and you need to stop bombing our paid mercenaries.
That's right. Our Western-backed forces that we put in place there to take down the Assad administration.
Exactly. I mean, so how much longer is that supposed to be acceptable? And now we're not only poking a bear in the eye, the bear in the eye,
right.
but we're also poking a dragon in the eye. And
that's right.
telling them, well, yeah, these South China Sea islands, yeah, we know they're in the what are those words? South China Sea. We understand that.
We're not calling it the Eastern Asian islands.
I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. And then we have so arrogant and so full of hubris that we go over to them and say, well, you better stop doing that.
Right.
I mean, who are we to do that?
Yeah, that day of control is pretty much over.
It's over. It is over. And
I want to bring up, you had mentioned Syria, and that is just its own show and the disaster that is taking place there. But I want to bring up one point that I hope everyone remembers, and that's that the West started this.
Yes.
And we not only started it, we are continuing, not you and me, of course, and not the listeners, but we as the West continue to provide arms and encouragement and money to keep this entire country in civil war.
Yes. That's
With
the problem.
That is the problem. And and the West has also stood behind the creation of the Islamic State, which, whether it's through design or through an uncontrollable manner, has its own degree of power in the world. And Rory, you know that to aggregate the news that we put out every morning in the World News Update, I wrote a computer program that goes out and sifts through forums, it sifts through relay chats, it sifts through different languages in the world and picks out emotions and keywords and news that's happening around the world. And then it filters that to me. Well, I'm able to go through all that data as it comes live or in retrospect. And let me tell you what I'm seeing. The Islamic State and their followers are being instructed at this point to go for soft target attacks. That means attacks on taxi cabs, malls, supermarkets, police departments, things that you don't normally see an attack taking place, places that you would think are normally safe. This is going to continue to happen as the West loses its control.
Yes.
And now that may be a redirect. That may be by design so that we have this enemy to look over here. This is why we're doing all of these horrible things. That may be the redirect, but the fact is that redirect doesn't make any of us any more safe here in the United States.
No,
or in the European countries. So we need to be aware that this type of soft target attack is going to increase, and start paying attention. Use situational awareness. Look for exits. Know how to protect yourself. Know that as soon as you see a potential attack, you need to make the decision to either overcome that attack with violence or escape before anything can happen.
And if you don't do that, then your odds of
you'll be on the news.
Yes, and not the way you want to be.
That's right.
Not how you want to be.
So you couldn't explain this anymore. That we want everyone out there to prepare for the unknowns, prepare for what you don't see coming, and just know what to do. Learn the ABCs of emergency triage care. Learn exactly what to do in the event of various different disasters. And like you have said, it might not be the nuclear attack that hits you. It might be an earthquake. It could be a tornado. It could be flooding in Louisiana. It could be power outages, in Florida. It could be anything. So being more prepared today will make you and your family safer for tomorrow.
And these types of events that you just described, the more natural disasters, they're the more likely event. Or
That's right.
let's break it down even further. What if the main breadwinner for the family gets a broken leg? They're in an auto accident, not of their fault. Somebody runs a red light or a stop sign, T-bones the vehicle, and all of a sudden the breadwinner has a broken leg and is going to be down for the next 6 weeks.
That brings up a great point in our preparedness plan, and that's called the 1-year plan. So you purchase enough of the items, major items, that you use every day and that are necessary for health and safety for an entire year. So that's enough toothpaste, toilet paper, towels. Don't use paper towels. Use white cotton towels and wash them and dry them. Razors, enough things that are, even if a disaster doesn't take place, you will have a year's worth of these goods that if a financial disaster in your own household happens, you won't have to be scrambling to feed your family and buy razors so you don't look disheveled and buy deodorant, so that you don't have an odor problem. You will have all of these things except food taken care of, and food should be primarily within your preparedness plan too. And we're a big fan of using your preps. Every single day, we are cooking from our preparedness food items from our pantry. We're using the rice, we're using the flour. My wife's baking bread right now as we speak. We're using the sugar every day. All of these things are in our food safe buckets that we are cycling through and using every day. So having enough of these items gives you a great buffer against financial disaster of your very own, even while the rest of the world is peachy and everything's fine for your neighbors.
Exactly, because that's a very real scenario that I just described. I mean, that is every day, every single day, in more communities than not that
That's right.
happens. I mean,
And without a doubt, we're going to see an economic shift here. We're already starting to see the beginnings of it.
yes,
We're seeing the same cycle of patterns that happens where Venezuela, some African countries, their economy crashes, and slowly this starts to build up to where major economies start to become affected, and then it becomes a crash of our own. So people need to know that that is going to happen. It's just a matter of how long can they stave off the disaster.
there you go. And with that, Brad, I think we've given them quite a bit to chew on for the weekend. Hopefully, we didn't scare them too much.
Don't be scared, be prepared.
Don't be scared, be prepared. I like that. And we've been speaking with Brad Harris, and you can find all of Brad's work over at fullspectrumsurvival.com and his great YouTube channel that he produces videos every single day, and that is Full Spectrum Survival as well. Brad, certainly appreciate all the time and all your great knowledge.
Thank you, Rory, and thank you everyone for listening.